We already talked about the absorption of nutrients into the villi of the small intestine, but where do they go from there? Now we're going to talk about the transport of these nutrients. So once a nutrient has entered the bloodstream or the lymphatic system, it can be transported to any part of the body. So think about this for a minute. You eat food and you get nutrients out of the food that then are transported through the body system to any cell to nourish it. Blood is carried to the digestive system by way of an artery. So blood comes from the heart and is carried to the digestive system by way of an artery. And then that branches into capillaries to reach every single cell. Blood leaves the digestive system by way of a vein. So the hepatic portal vein is the vein that collects blood from the GI tract and conducts it to the capillaries in the liver. All water-soluble nutrients, sugars, amino acids, vitamins, water-soluble vitamins, minerals, all go through the hepatic portal vein to the liver. The hepatic vein collects blood from the liver capillaries and returns it to the heart. This illustration shows in detail what is happening. So, the hepatic portal vein brings nutrients from the gut, specifically the small intestine, into the liver. The tiny blood vessels in the liver are called the sinusoids, and those nutrients get delivered to all of these tiny blood vessels in the liver itself. The liver is responsible for converting these nutrients into the forms that may be needed by the rest of the body. The liver also takes these nutrients and stores them as well for later use. Blood from the liver then circulates to all the cells of the body, delivering nutrients that the body may need. The lymphatic system, on the other hand, does not go directly to the liver, but instead carries fats and fat-soluble vitamins up to the heart, where they dump into the subclavian. And then they circulate into the right chamber of the heart. Remember, the liver is a really important component of metabolism. It takes nutrients and puts it back into circulation, stores nutrients, and also converts nutrients into forms that the body may need. Carefully study this diagram so that you gain a better understanding of what is going on in the liver and how nutrients are transported. As we said before, the lymphatic system is a one-way route for fluids to travel from tissue spaces into the blood. And we said that the lymphatic system takes fat-soluble nutrients up towards the heart. And lipids travel from place to place bundled with proteins called lipoproteins. There are several forms of lipoproteins. Earlier we mentioned chylomicrons, which are formed in the intestine and transport fats to cells of the body. But there are other lipoproteins described here on this slide. Very low density lipoproteins are made by the liver cells to transport lipids to various tissues in the body, and they are made primarily of triglycerides. Low-density lipoproteins that are derived from LDLs as the cells remove triglycerides from them, LDLs carry cholesterol and triglycerides from the liver to cells of the body, and they are made up of primarily of cholesterol. High-density lipoproteins, on the other hand, are lipoproteins that transport cholesterol back to the liver from the peripheral cells, and they are made up of primarily protein. LDL lipoproteins are considered bad cholesterol because they tend to deposit cholesterol out into arteries. HDL, or high-density lipoproteins, are considered good cholesterol because they take cholesterol back to the liver rather than depositing it onto arteries. So HDL can be thought of as substances that almost sweep out the arteries. High concentrations of LDL or low concentrations of HDL in the blood are associated with an increased risk of heart disease, which by hearing this explanation, perhaps you can better understand. In fact, there is only one type of cholesterol. It's just a matter as to how it is packaged on the lipoproteins that determines whether or not it increases or decreases your risk of heart disease. In this slide, we can see the relative size of the lipoproteins and their relative makeup. We can see that a lipoprotein is a great big glob of fat that consists of triglyceride and cholesterol surrounded with an outer layer of protein. This outer layer of protein makes them able to move in the watery mediums of the body. We can see that chylomicrons are very big, and they consist primarily of triglyceride. We can see that VLDL and LDL have lower amounts of triglyceride, but increasing amounts of cholesterol. And we can see that HDL has the most protein and the lowest amount of triglycerides. The phospholipids, fatty acid tails, point towards the interior where the lipids are, and the proteins are near the outer edge, cover the structure. And this arrangement allows the molecules to travel better in the watery fluids of the body. Remember that HDL has positive implications for heart health, and LDL has negative implications for heart health. Also remember that these lipoproteins, with the exception of chylomicrons, are all manufactured in the liver. Physicians will often measure a person's blood lipid profile because they are interested in the types of fats that are present, such as triglycerides and cholesterol, and also the types of lipoproteins that carry them. As we previously stated, LDLs are considered bad for heart health, and HDLs are considered good. So how do we lower LDL and raise HDL? Well, quite simply, LDL will lower if we manage our weight, if we have a moderate saturated fat intake, if we have a high intake of soluble fibers, which we will talk about more in the chapter on carbohydrates, and if we have a good level of physical activity. HDL will also be raised by managing our weight and having good physical activity. However, the contents of the diet do not have as much an effect on HDL as it does on LDL. Again, we'll talk more about these levels when we get to the chapter on fat. So let's check our knowledge again. 3 factors that lower the concentration of LDL and raise the concentration of HDL in the blood are they A, polyunsaturated fat rest and dietary HDL, weight control, soluble fiber and physical activity, as in B, antioxidants, insoluble fibers, and dietary HDL, as it is in C, or D, saturated fat, antioxidants, insoluble fiber. Well, the answer here is that the three factors that lower the concentration of LDL and raise the concentration of HDL in the blood are weight control, soluble fiber, and physical activity. We didn't state this before, but you cannot eat LDL or HDL. LDL and HDL are made by the body in different proportions based somewhat on genetics, but also on your weight management, the amount of physical activity you get, and the types of fats in your diet.